Hello, motion graphics students. This is Mr. Simons. Today we're going to play around a little bit with Flash. Flash is another Adobe program that runs very similar to Illustrator and Photoshop, but has some different features. And let's go ahead and open up Flash here. Now I've already saved an image that I'm going to play around with. I got out onto the internet and created a folder in my home folder for my image here. And before we get going, we wanted to see which of our views we like the best. I like the classic view here because it reminds me a lot of Photoshop and Illustrator. It's got the tools on this side. And you can play around, of course, the same way you did in Illustrator there. So we're going to make an action script to illustrate and animate here. So action script 3, go ahead and select it here, and we're going to import to our stage the image that we already saved here. Now the image is in my home folder and in the folder that I called Flash here. And it's a JPEG image. We're going to open that up. If we need to mess around with this image at all, especially if it's way too big for the page, you want to come over here to the transform button and you can change the scale of it here. Make it 65% of its size there. That's a good starting point for us there. I like that. And I'm going to move them up to one corner here, which is going to be our starting point for our animation. And there they go. They're going to start up there for our animation. Now, before we can animate these guys, right now they're still a JPEG. They're still a regular image, and we need them to be a symbol. So we right-click on the image and convert it to a symbol here. The type of symbol right now will be movie clip. We'll play around with, and always name your stuff here. Let's name them just dancers for their symbol. As you start to do some really complicated layering in Flash, like with characters, you will definitely want to name every single layer you have, because you might be separating fingers or, in the extreme, even knuckles in order to animate different parts of your characters here. So always name your stuff here. And this is just a layer here, but we don't need to worry about that because we're only going to have one layer for now. And let's go ahead and create a motion tween. Let's right click on this, create a motion tween. Goes out to about 20, 25 there. Let's stretch this out to about 150. Just get the little double arrow there and stretch that out so that we've got enough room to really get an animation rolling here. And make sure your playhead is on the very end, and let's choose their end point here and just move them over. Just grab them. We're on the grabby tool or the selection tool here, and move them over to where their end point is going to be. Okay, and you see this line, and that is your motion tween. That's the movement that's going to happen in between frame 1 and frame 153 or whatever. And don't worry about being really particular about this. I want you guys to get how to just make some motion happening here. All right, so we're going to move them and transform them as we go. And so let's choose frame 15 here, and you'll see that they're partway down the timeline. Partway down the timeline and partway through the motion tween, the green motion tween. Now we just grab them and move them to a different location. Let's move them to the foreground here and click on the free transform tool so that we can actually change their size a bit. We want them to be bigger in the foreground and smaller in the background. So they're bigger at frame 15, but at frame 30, we're going to move them back and make them smaller again. And then at frame 45, in the foreground, and bigger. So they're going to shrink as they go to the background and grow as they come into the foreground. And about every 15 frames or so, we'll have them do a little bit of movement. And they don't have to go just in a back and forth way. They can go up to the corner or anything we want. Let's get these guys bigger in the foreground here. And then for the next motion, let's take them back up to another corner. All right, back up to their original corner here. Make them nice and small as they shrink into the background there. And then for our next one, come down here. Whoops. Come down here, make sure you click just on the characters. Okay. Nice and big. Here, got just a couple of more that we're gonna do in the motion. And let's take them over to the far corner, staying nice and big because they're in the foreground. Way in the background there, and then back to the end. Now, one of the cool things we can do, let's make sure we're on the selection tool here, is to select these motions and turn them into arcs. So selecting these motions and arcing them so that none of these motions are straight from one place to the other. All right, looks like all our motions are in arcs. They're growing and shrinking. And let's see what the animation actually looks like. You hit Command Enter and see what happens. Cool. All right, so play around with some motion tweens. We're going to do the next more complicated thing will be embedding some motion in the background, and we're going to make these dancers flip back and forth just by flipping their image. So see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.